We have now drafted a bunch of rookie draft teams, and these are some of the players in the first 2 rounds that we cannot stop drafting. We're going to have another video later this week talking about sleepers in rounds 3 and 4 and some fades in the early rounds. But today, we're going to be talking about some players that we have drafted a lot of shares of. We each have 3. We're going to go down in descending order from 3 to 1, talking about some of our most drafted players. Should be a fun one. Let us know down below who you've been getting a ton of in your rookie drafts. But without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, so players we cannot stop drafting. We're going to go in descending order from 3 to 1. Danny, who you got as your number 3 player in the first 2 rounds of rookie drafts that you cannot stop drafting?
Right off the bat with a guy that we both had graded as a top 5 quarterback in our grading cycle. He was your 4. He was my 5. Goes as the quarterback 6 in the NFL, but he's not your typical quarterback 6 in the NFL draft. He goes with 12th overall draft capital to the perfect coach for his skill set. I'm talking about Bo Nix, quarterback of the Denver Broncos, a guy I would be willing to take in the top 12 in the first round of my rookie drafts. Currently have him ranked at 10. I think he would be in that tier for me with a guy like Xavier Worthy, a guy like Lad McConkey, a guy like Brian Thomas, and that he's currently going outside of the first round in the majority of drafts right now. And he was a guy I already thought highly of. He graded, like I said, as my quarterback 5. He had relatively close grades to that of JJ McCarthy and Jaden Daniels, guys that will be gone in the top 7 or 8 rookie picks in the majority of drafts. But the main question mark I had throughout the cycle was, would he get that coveted first round capital? And like I said in the intro there, not only did he get that first round capital, he fits like a glove with what Sean Payton wants to do. Sean Payton wants a smart, cerebral, pre-snap processor that is accurate and decisive with his first reads. And we saw that on display with Bo Nix and that Oregon offense all year. I understand the concerns people might have. The nature of that offense, not really stretching the ball down the field, a lot of manufactured deep shots. But what I saw from Bo Nix in terms of his pre-snap ability was up there with anybody in this class. Being able to adjust them out of plays, being able to slide protections, be able to get to his first read. And we actually heard that in the presser with Sean Payton as to why Bo Nix was the quarterback that Denver wanted all along. They wanted that Drew Brees-esque quarterback. We don't need, the Joe Milton, the Caleb Williams, the Drake May, just natural arm strength in this offense. We need a guy that is decisive, gets through his reads, is accurate with the football, and can kind of play that John Stockton role for my offense. I don't need LeBron James, that superstar power wing that can go downhill every possession. I just need my John Stockton that can distribute it to my playmakers, distribute it to the guy that you're about to talk about, distribute it to Cortland Sutton, distribute it to Greg Dulcich, distribute among the weapons in this offense. And to be honest, man, Bo Nix does that as well as any single quarterback in this class. So the fact that you're getting a starting NFL quarterback with top 15 level draft capital, a guy that I think can threaten quarterback 2 territory amongst dynasty startup quarterback rankings, Bo Nix is your guy, man. If you're a team that was contending last year, needed a young upside shot at your quarterback 3 position because you're stacked at running back and receiver, Bo Nix is the type of guy I want behind my, monster quarterback cores of Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts. If you get Bo Nix, solid quarterback 3 projection, but who knows, man? He has the talent. He has the opportunity to eventually be a top 15 Brock Purdy-esque ascension. I really do feel like if we're going to point to a quarterback in the dynasty market that is as similar to Bo Nix, it's going to be a guy like Brock Purdy. Not a lot of people are talking about Brock Purdy's natural talent, but because he's such a good fit with that Shanahan offense, and because he's been so productive in the NFL thus far, he saw his dynasty value rise from a guy that people were taking shots on with, waiver pickups, 3rd-round rookie picks getting shedded, to a guy that's being valued as a top 30 overall asset on the market. I really do feel like that's the path I can see for Bo Nix.
Yeah, I mean, Bo Nix is never going to be valued as a first-round startup pick unless he absolutely just comes out and CJ Stroud's the NFL, which probably wouldn't happen. I think more likely he's a Tua Tagovailoa, Brock Purdy type of area of valuation if he hits. Because the tough thing with Bo Nix is that the dynasty market doesn't really like him, hence why he was a top 12 NFL draft pick, and he's currently being valued as like the 14th overall player off the board in Superflex drafts. And again, part of that's the depth of this class, but it also is that, not a lot of people liked Bo Nix, especially especially going back to his days at Auburn. So he is going to have to kind of prove people wrong, similar to what we saw from Will Levis last year. I think if he has like a Will Levis-like rookie season, only of course we'll have probably more games out of him, because I would expect him to start from day one, week one for the Denver Broncos, because he's an experienced quarterback. He already kind of understands what he needs to do. Like you said, very smart, should get up to speed pretty quickly. But yeah, Bo Nix is a guy I've drafted a bunch of times. I've drafted him twice already for teams that needed quarterback 2, needed quarterback 3, because I do believe it's not often that you can get a young upside quarterback that has a chance to develop into a top 3-round starter pick with the 201 in your rookie draft, or with the 202 in your rookie draft where he's currently being valued. I have him ranked like, I would take him as high as 111, 112 if I was in need of quarterback help. So yeah, Bo Nix to me fits the offense perfectly. Definitely the type of quarterback Sean Payton wants to have, and underratedly has decent enough tools that he can be okay for fantasy. He's never going to be Caleb Williams. He's never going to be Jaden Daniels from a fantasy perspective, but to be a Baker Mayfield, a Kirk Cousins, if the weapons around him, if the supporting cast and the coaching around him is good, which we both kind of believe that it is, and we'll talk about one of those supporting cast weapons in a second. Yeah, Bo Nix is a great option.
And the last thing I'll leave off is, coincidentally, Baker Mayfield, your comp for him, Kirk Cousins, my comp for him. If he's that type of quarterback asset and you're getting that in the second round of your rookie drafts, you can thank your lucky stars, because you're talking about a 23-year-old quarterback that has the opportunity to be a long-standing quarterback too in Dynasty. And I get that. You're picking a quarterback, you want him to have that, Jordan Love type of ascension, Jalen Hurts type of ascension. But if he's hitting a double and you're pretty confident, which we are, that he's going to hit said double, the ROI on this investment is just strong.
Yeah, absolutely. So we already talked about this Broncos situation a lot. We can spend a little bit less time on my third guy that I can't stop drafting. And I talked about this guy in depth in yesterday's video. For those of you guys that saw the wide receivers to target and avoid, you know that Troy Franklin is about to come out of my mouth, because at 6'2", 176 pounds, a guy that had some problems working through contact in college, didn't really have the greatest pre-draft cycle either, was sick at the combine, ran a poor gauntlet drill and all that kind of stuff. But when you asked people when the season ended, was this guy going to go in round 1? A lot of people would have said yes. They all thought he was going to go round 1, early round 2 in that top 50 overall draft capital area. And he definitely should have, based on his prospect profile, as I detailed in yesterday's video. He was very productive. He got better every single year. He was the clear number 1 of his offense, posting, 32% targets per route run against man. He was Bo Nix's go-to guy. Well, he goes to the NFL, and hopefully he gets to become Bo Nix's go-to guy yet again for the Denver Broncos. Sean Payton raved about the fact that he's going to start at Z receiver, which is exactly what we said about him on his film breakdown. He needs an X receiver to take away that press man coverage. Cortland Sutton can do that. Hopefully he doesn't get traded here pretty soon. Troy Franklin, you want him detached from the line of scrimmage, playing Z receiver. It's a perfect fit for his skill set. He's playing with his college quarterback. The type of guy that, because he went in the 4th round, and again, he had a very good sleeper profile, ranks as the best sleeper prospect in the 2024 FSE prospect model, beating out the likes of Puka Nacua and Amon-Ra St. Brown. This is a guy that you can get that late in your rookie draft, 208, 209, 210 type of area, who has really upside to become a top 30, top 24 dynasty wide receiver, because the dynasty market already liked this guy to begin with.
And the main reason why people would be avoiding Troy Franklin would be they would look at the draft capital, see 4th round, be instantly turned off. But to be honest, when you're contextualizing the situation, he went 102 overall, which in the majority of draft classes would get him inside the 3rd round. And if you're contextualizing it, he was 2 picks away from being a top 100 overall pick. And I understand people are going to hear that and be like, well, we can create that type of context for a lot of players in the past, when, to be honest, not everybody in the past has the type of profile that Troy Franklin has, from a production standpoint, from a trait standpoint, from a speed standpoint. I understand every single draft pick that you make can't be the next Puka Nacua, can't be the next Terry McLaurin, but when the profile is this good, it's tough not to take chances when he falls to the end of the 2nd round. And like I mentioned with Bo Nix, let's say you were a contending team last year. You needed a quarterback 3. You need a little bit of wide receiver upside on your bench. Well, guess what? You finished with the 111 this year. Take Bo Nix at the 111. Take Troy Franklin at the 211. And you got a nice young stack for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the FSC prospect model, even with day 3 draft capital, ranks Troy Franklin as a top 6 receiver in this class. And if he had gone in the top 50, he would rank as a top 5 receiver in this class. Yeah. So just because he went 102nd overall isn't really deterring me off of drafting him. Again, I'm not going crazy. I'm not drafting him 201 or anything like that. But at the 208, 209, where that is technically aggressive given his market value of around, the 211, 212, I'm going to draft him a lot. And I already have drafted him 3 times in the 6 rookie drafts that I've done.
Yeah, 100%. Troy Franklin, a guy that is being underrated because of his draft capital. But A guy that I feel like isn't getting rated enough due to his draft capital is a guy I'm going to talk about as my second player that I cannot stop drafting. And the market's got to make a choice here. If we're going to ding Troy Franklin for not being a round 3 pick, why are we not giving the flowers for Xavier Legette legitimately going in round 1 of the NFL draft? We're talking about a round 1 NFL wide receiver that is going off the board as the 207 in your rookie drafts. And I understand that people are going to look at the Legette profile. People are going to see the first 4 years. They're instantly going to cross him off their list. If he's such a good player, if he's a first-round caliber wide receiver, why did he not produce before year 5 in college? And to be honest, that's the day-old question. I still think about this to this day. When I first watched Xavier Legette's film, I could not understand why this guy didn't produce in his 4 years. But when you open up the covers, you kind of unveil stuff into his profile, you understand that there's so much more context that goes behind the late breakout than people seemingly want to admit that are low on Xavier Legette. First of all, small school player, small school quarterback coming into college, affected by COVID, deaths in his family, going through injuries. It took a lot of time for him to establish himself. On top of that, he was playing behind Jalen Brooks. He was playing behind Juice Wells into that year. Well, guess what? His breakout game was that Notre Dame bowl game at the end of that 2022 season. 7 catches, 78 yards, 3 touchdowns. Gets that whole offseason to really develop that rapport with Spencer Rattler, define himself as a true NFL wide receiver prospect. And we were able to see that breakout on display. And I understand the context. He was an older player. But when you are telling me right now that I can get a 6'1", 221-pound, 4.39 speed, first-round talent, first-round pick, wide receiver at the 207 in my rookie drafts, I am smashing the draft button every single time. And if you needed some more context as to why Xavier Legette's a good pick, you got to hear what Dave Canales said about this guy at his presser. The main concern I had for Xavier Legette, despite even being a top 8 wide receiver in my grading cycle pre-draft, was that I didn't want him to go out there, play the X wide receiver position right off the bat. And that's my worry that teams would do, seeing this big bulking presence, wanting to throw him at the X wide receiver spot. But if you heard Dave Canales in his presser, he said that I understand that Xavier Legette isn't a true bona fide, polished, day in, day out, full route tree wide receiver just yet. But what he does fits our offense. Running crossers, yak situations, get the ball in his hands, let him be a natural playmaker after the catch. Everything that I saw on display with Xavier Legette's film at South Carolina is the points of emphasis Dave Canales put home in that introductory press conference. He's fired up. He wants him to be that Z cross wide receiver that we've seen dominate Kyle Shanahan type of schemes in the past. Hence your Brandon Ayuk, hence your Deebo Samuel. I mean, people forget they view Brandon Ayuk as this bona fide true X wide receiver now because of how he's developed in the NFL. But when he came to the NFL, the main allures of his game were get this guy on end breakers, get this guy with the ball in his hands, let him create after the catch. And that is the exact layout I expect for Xavier Legette coming in. And I understand, there's a difference between working with Kyle Shanahan versus working with Dave Canales. But everything that I'm hearing from Dave Canales in terms of adapting around his players is what I want for these young guys, which is why I'm in on Bryce Young, which is why I'm in on Jonathan Brooks, which is why I'm in on this Panthers offense as a whole, especially Xavier Legette when I can get him at the 207.
Yeah, like the price point is exactly why we're drafting him a lot, because I've also drafted him a couple times as well. This profile of a first-round receiver that's, going with 6'1", 221 pounds, ran in the 4.3s, had good film coming out of school, even with a bad profile, you would still have to draft this guy like 111, 112 in rookie drafts. If you think about the Panthers last year drafting Jonathan Mingo, who was by far a worse prospect than Xavier Legette, went in the second round, not in the first round, didn't have nearly the best season career projection that Xavier Legette had. You had to draft that guy like 112, 201, 202 in your rookie draft. And he, like I said, was a worse prospect with worse draft capital and with a worse coaching staff too. So Xavier Legette coming in and playing basically a better role for this offense and having the discount of that 205 to 207 price tag that you have to pay on him, I'm more than comfortable paying that price tag because, like I said, if I had to draft this guy over Ladd McConkey or if I had to draft him over Bo Nix or if I had to draft him over Jonathan Brooks, his teammate, I wouldn't do it. But you don't have to draft him there. He's going off the board 205, 206, 207, 208 in most rooms.
Yeah, for sure. And people are seemingly quick to forget that when DK Metcalf came out, he didn't have a crystal clean prospect profile. He was injured in college. He obviously was competing for targets at the time with A.J. Brown. I understand that context, but he slips, battling injuries, falls to the end of the second round. I view Xavier Legette as a similar type of prospect to what DK Metcalf was. And if you're telling me that, yeah, he could bust, but the upside is that he can turn into DK Metcalf, and I definitely feel like that's in the range of outcomes when I watch Xavier Legette play. 207 seems like a steal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Chris Godwin is actually the guy that I think Dave Canales has the plan for how to use him as, because Godwin was used in the slot. He was used on in breakers, on screen passes, that kind of stuff. I feel like Chris Godwin is the guy that you need to come back to as opposed to the DK Metcalf comparison, because if he came out and said, we're going to use this guy like Mike Evans, then it was more like the DK Metcalf comparison. Because of course, Dave Canales came from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I think the way that they used Godwin last year was get him a lot of PPR targets, let him work after the catch. Only Godwin has dealt with a lot of injuries in his career, isn't quite as explosive as Xavier Legette is now. And especially even in his prime, Godwin wasn't quite as explosive as Xavier Legette. So moving on to the next guy, the number 2 guy that I can't stop drafting is Trey Benson, running back now of the Arizona Cardinals. Was an early 3rd rounder, which is pretty high draft capital for running backs nowadays. Physical, elusive, balance. We talked about Trey Benson's prospect profile in so much depth in the running back rankings video, if you want to go back and look at that. But basically, with Trey Benson, you get a guy that doesn't have a whole lot of tread on his tires. He was not the type of guy that was a workhorse in college for like 4 years. He had an ACL tear his freshman season, he had COVID his freshman season, an ACL tear his sophomore year, and then his junior year transfers to Florida State, has a monster like 45% missed tackles forced per attempt, which is like a PFF record, 226.6 elusiveness rating, which is a PFF record. We were talking about this in the sleeper video, which we recorded before this one, that Javonte Williams was like this elite elusiveness back in college, and he can't do anything post ACL tear in the NFL in terms of making people miss. Well, Trey Benson literally broke a record post ACL tear in terms of making people miss. So with him, the refinement of playing running back is the challenge. It's the thing that he needs to overcome. And thankfully, he's going to a situation that has a tried and true pro style running back like James Conner, who's the same archetype of running back that he is, power running back who can contribute as a receiver. And Trey Benson early on in his rookie year should be taking notes, watching James Conner like a hawk in terms of how to run like a professional running back. And if he can do that, he is 6 times the athlete that James Conner ever was in his prime. And he has a Breece Hall caliber ceiling. And you're not getting this guy 103, 101, 102, like you had to take Breece Hall back in 2022. You're getting this guy outside of the top 14, 15 overall players in rookie drafts. You could take this guy 203 is where I've gotten him in a couple leagues. Someone got him in 205 in one of my leagues. Like, you don't have to take this dude high, and he legitimately has top 10 running back upside at his position.
The downside for Benson, like if he doesn't live up to expectations as a pro, to me is like a more physical Miles Sanders. So you're talking about that as potentially being a floor range of outcome for Trey Benson, with the ceiling legitimately being Breece Hall light, like you said. Top 6 to 10 dynasty running back. If you're getting that type of upside and that type of range of outcomes in the mid-second of your dynasty rookie drafts at this point, like you said, 19th overall ADP, that is legitimately what? The 207 off the board. So him and Legette are like back-to-back in terms of your rankings, and you're talking about in the mid-second. Why are we letting them fall that far? We mentioned with Legette,
we kind of have to because of the prospects going ahead of them. It's just, it's not that we want to take them higher than this. It's just that we want these picks in this range because they're still like top 7 round startup assets.
It's ludicrous how talented this pocket of your rookie drafts is, because these are the type of profiles, like you said, with Benson. We had to take Breece at the 101, the 102, the 103 in our rookie drafts at that time. We had to take, a first round high upside wide receiver in the majority of draft classes as the 106, 107, 108. Just look at Quentin Johnson last year. I think Xavier Legette this year is a better prospect than Quentin Johnson was last year. That just goes to show you, if you have these early to mid second round picks of your rookie drafts, you're swinging on home runs.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can transition off of my number 2 into your number 1, which you do have to draft with a high-end first-round pick, but we're getting him late, and I've seen him. I wish I had more shares of Drake Maye. I wish I had drafted this guy more. I've only drafted him one time, and I actually had to draft him at the 104, but there's been leagues and rooms that I've been in where I just didn't hold those picks, where I've seen him fall to 105, 106.
It's remarkable. So obviously you alluded to it. Drake Maye, quarterback now of the New England Patriots. He is my ranked 3rd overall player, your ranked 3rd overall player. He's the type of guy that falls in the majority of drafts in that 105 to 107 range. Not even as the quarterback 2 off the board, but the quarterback 3. And we'll get to quarterback 2 off the board once we talk about our last video of the series. But Drake Maye is a profile that typically should be the 101 in a lot of your rookie drafts. If he was available in 2022, if he was available in 2023, if he was available in 2025, he would have been the first overall pick in those draft classes. And with Drake Maye, it's pretty simple. The expectation the market puts on Jayden Daniels, I think, should actually be placed on Drake Maye. Drake Maye garnered a 90.25 grade. For reference, the other quarterback in this range, Jayden Daniels, had an 84.0 grade. And if you guys are wondering why I love Drake Maye, the player, 6'5", 220 pounds, mobile as all hell, big time arm talent. In a conference full of these type of aliens, we're talking about the Justin Herberts, the Josh Allens, the Trevor Lawrences, the Patrick Mahomes. You need a quarterback with the arm talent and with the mobility to go score for score with those guys. And I think the Patriots got their guy at 3rd overall in the NFL draft. In my opinion of Drake Maye, view him as the type of quarterback that can be valued as a top 5 level startup pick. Similar ascension to what we saw from CJ Stroud last year. And yet he's going off the board in the mid-first round of his own rookie class. Like, I understand people want to talk all upside when it comes to Jayden Daniels, but why not talk about the upside of the guy with the 6'5" frame, with the 220 pounds on it, with the big time arm, with the mobility, and with the wide receiver core that much improved in the NFL draft. I like Demario Douglas as a slot guy. Javon Baker has all the talent to be a capable X wide receiver at the next level. And Jalen Polk is your glue guy, is your Z wide receiver, is your chain mover, can be that Rashid Rice for this offense. In terms of the Patriots plan, not enough people are talking about just how well it got executed in this NFL draft. Like, I don't think people are stating enough just how much value they got getting Drake Maye those 2 pass catchers.
Yeah, and I mean, there's still going to be work to be done. Maybe those guys don't all hit. Maybe you have to add a number 1 receiver next offseason or whatever. But I do believe, given that Drake Maye is really young, given that the Dynasty community already liked Drake Maye, that he's going to insulate his value very well. And if they do go out and trade for Brandon Ayuk next offseason, or if they do go out and sign T. Higgins next offseason, that he's probably going to be in a really good spot in terms of holding his Dynasty value in next year's class. Maybe they have a high enough pick to draft Luther Burden or draft a Emeka Egbuka or something like that. So for me, yeah, Drake Maye, getting him at 105, 106 should be an absolute crime. This guy is way closer to Caleb Williams than people are willing to admit. We are higher on Drake Maye. We've talked about it on numerous occasions. I feel like a broken record at this point talking about how much we like Drake Maye. But again, I view the Patriots landing spot as, yeah, he could have went to the Vikings and that would have been better. But at the same time, the Patriots, to me, were a better landing spot than the Commanders, who have a horrible offensive line. Cliff Kingsbury calling their plays, and outside of Terry McLaurin, not a whole lot going on as their pass catchers there. So with Drake Maye, again, he could be the type of quarterback prospect that ascends to that CJ Stroud level upside, who also, by the way, was available at the 105, 106 because he went to a bad landing spot and people overthought his prospect profile. When you're a young quarterback who produces like the guy that CJ Stroud did in college, and we overthink players like that, that's basically what we get when you pass on him. He turns into an elite dynasty quarterback. My final guy that we're going to talk about as a rookie draft value here is Jaylen Wright, running back now of the Miami Dolphins. Year 1, not expecting a whole lot out of Jaylen Wright outside of efficient touches when he gets them, but when you look at the fit in the offense, you have the Miami Dolphins scheme. Of course, they just elevated the play of Devon Achane in last year's draft. They just carried Raheem Mostert really to an RB1 finish last year. Raheem Mostert is 32 years old. He's dealt with a lot of injuries. And Jaylen Wright is a high upside running back who I have ranked inside my top 20 overall players, top 21 overall players. And he's routinely available towards the early portion of the 3rd round, right now ranked at 24 overall on Keep Trade Cuts. So with Jaylen Wright, pre-draft, he was my RB3. He's an elite athlete, 5'11", 210 pounds, 95th percentile speed score, 95th percentile burst score, great power, great footwork, great athleticism, like I said, good 3rd down ceiling as well, elevation to become a 3-down back in the NFL. And Devon Achane's an undersized guy, so maybe he can command a full workload at some point and take over that Raheem Mostert role. To me, it's just, this is a good ROI pick, as we talked about already. It's like when you draft a guy late 2nd round, especially if it's like dynasty best ball we're talking about, he's going to give you weeks. He's going to give you opportunity to increase his value. And it wouldn't shock me if this time next year, we're looking at Devon Achane and Jaylen Wright very similarly in terms of overall dynasty value. They might both be back-end dynasty RB1s.
Yeah, and it's funny when it comes to Jaylen Wright, because obviously he's the exact skill set, the exact scheme fit. We've talked about scheme fits in these last couple of videos, that he's the exact scheme fit we wanted for this Miami offense. They needed a long-term replacement for the Raheem Mostert role. Raheem Mostert, older running back, injury concerns in his own right. neither Jaylen Wright nor Devon Achane need 20 touches per game to be RB1 level players in this Miami offense. Even if we're talking about the touch distribution as, let's just say 16 to 18 touches per game for Devon Achane, 10 to 12 touches per game for Jaylen Wright. And I think that's a cautious type of projection for this 1-2 punch. There's very real possibility that Jaylen Wright could eventually be the number one in this offense. Even when we're talking about 16 to 18 for him, 10 to 12 for Wright, on 10 to 12 touches in this offense, Jaylen Wright can average 6 yards per carry and 8 yards per catch.
Yeah, I had a higher grade on Jaylen Wright coming out than I did on Achane.
Yeah.
And Achane obviously is such a great fit for this offense and was elevated by that. But to me, Jaylen Wright is as good of a fit and actually has the size to carry a full workload. So it wouldn't shock me at all if those roles flipped in 2 years' time, where Jaylen Wright's the one getting 16 to 18 touches. Devon Achane is the change of pace, 10 to 15 touch back. And of course, this rushing scheme is going to elevate the play of any running back that is in it, let alone two guys that have the speed, have the athleticism, and have the elusiveness to actually break tackles and make things happen on their own. So Jaylen Wright, my number one value in this range. I've drafted him, I think, 4 times so far. I had him fall to me at 3-3 in one league, and I nearly jumped out of my seat drafting him. This dude is a guy that I would draft 209, 210, no problem. And the fact that he's available in the late second round, early third round in some cases is really, really exciting to me. So again, if you guys enjoyed this video, leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Check out the link in the pinned comment for flockfantasy.com. We are starting a new Dynasty listener startup about 2 weeks from now. So make sure to check out the form, the Google form in the pinned comment as well. If you want access to that listener startup, you can follow the instructions down there. But with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.